Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Astrology Victoria. Today, with your host Tatiana, and we have Jessica Phillips today with us. So, Jessica, it's a very dear friend of mine who is, by the way, one of the most gifted psychics I've ever met. Yeah, I took up like no, very humble, very humbly. Yes, Jessica has this ability, this fabulous ability to pick on the energy surrounding like literally everything. And over the years that I've known her, it's been such a guiding light in my life. And today we're going to be discussing in an informal way all our musings around Saturn and what Saturn has meant for us moving through Aquarius and exiting Aquarius. And today, on this day, I just felt inspired to do this live for Saturn moving into Pisces and what that could mean for all of us, the collective, and just general thoughts. I have not really prepared anything. I'm going to go with the flow and with whatever divine intuition comes through, and obviously with Jessica's amazing talents for uh, psychic. All right, Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit to the little screen here?
Hi.
I mean, and all of you hopefully watching this at any point in time.
Hi, this is Jessica here, and Tatiana and Victoria. It's my first time ever being on
Oh, who's watching?
YouTube.
Well,
And here we are.
here we are. Okay, so let's go on with the topic. So our topic today, first thing is lessons that Saturn left for us, moving through our personal houses and in Aquarius, and what that actually meant for us, because there's the general archetypal themes and then there's the lessons. So I just want to go a little bit briefly through the archetypal themes of Saturn moving through Aquarius, and then you can also look for yourself, like what was it for you, what were the lessons for you, and leave it in the comments below, like what lessons did you learn about your own experience of the past 3 years. So let's, the past 3 years is literally 2020, 2021, 2022, right? It's like, and we know that was our whole pandemic time and all these upheavals and different things in the world. So in a nutshell, like what were the themes that were more present for Saturn and Aquarius? So let's talk a little bit about Aquarius. So what is Aquarius about? Like, what's your perception of Aquarius, Jessica, of this past time? Or if you have any impression or imprint on Aquarius.
Aquarius, of course, rules the 11th house. Humanity, collective, conscious, more masculine energy, more thinking, the mind, science, rebellious energy, unique, your own unique energy within the collective, but also the collective energy.
So that's all the Aquarian themes, and obviously science, technology, and community. The cosmic clock. Like I always usually talk about the clock. Like it's a clock and it has little parts and pieces moving, and So, and each person is or each being or individual is an individual within a collective, and how this is a collective effort. Like consciousness is a collective thing. Manifestation is a collective group thought or group form, or thinking form, and everything gets manifested through a collective thinking, and that's very much the Aquarian symbolism. And now Saturn, being the ancient ruler of Aquarius, was in its it's
docile or
domicile, and its dignity. Yeah, it's dignified in Aquarius, and it's interesting because Saturn obviously represents a call for maturity,
slowing down.
So time, maturity, responsibility. Obviously, the reason for this call is so that we can evolve into better ways of being that are more mature, more grown up, basically. So Saturn has this ability to put limitations on things and be like the parent that says like, don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
or you're gonna burn yourself, or this or that, like limitations, and feel like we're being restricted, so that eventually we can take responsibility of why there's been a limitation on a particular area or subject. So obviously the limitations we could have experienced through our Aquarius passage is limitations obviously on freedom,
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course, yes.
of freedom, limitations around how we can be socially responsible and what that means.
There's been a lot of
Yeah.
restrictions for people around medical doctors, like not enough doctors here in our city.
Yeah, in our city, yeah, that too, like not having access to certain things, or things that we thought we had easy access to, then suddenly we're restricted in a lot of ways.
We're finding information,
In
even like technologically.
technology, like there's also this maybe control, or how information is being delivered, and we need to be more responsible around how we interact with information or technology. So all these things were all themes. Also, obviously, this is the time where, Zoom, these new structures, because also Saturn has like, Saturn creates limitations, so we can actually transcend the limitation by looking for a new solution or way of doing things that is ultimately more responsible, and that has some wisdom embedded. Because obviously Saturn has like the bad rep, because there's some fear even around the thinking of Saturn. So this is why I wanted to bring the topic of what lessons did I personally get from Saturn in 3 years. What was it for me? And then Jessica, if you want to share also for you how that felt. Do you want to say anything about that before we like?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
first what's
Yeah.
coming up is just Saturn also has the essence of integrity. Like, would you agree? So yeah, finding your own personal integrity in the last 3 years, your own autonomy within the collective, I think is maybe a big theme that I relate to. Finding your own voice within the noise.
The voice within the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so I lost I was trying to look at the comments. I was like, what? Where's the people? Anyway, awesome. Welcome, you people watching. We love you. Yeah, so you were saying yeah, that the integrity piece, so how we reach that.
Yeah, I just was thinking about Saturn as a point of integrity.
Yeah.
Our own autonomy.
Yeah.
And our own groundedness, it will help ground us within any situation by slowing down to actually look, like you said, from that more mature perspective.
Yeah, the grounding is a very big piece, because that's how Saturn creates structures, is it makes them real in reality. So we saw a lot of these new structures actually of the Aquarian type being formed during this time, like like Zooms, and or using technology in a certain way, raising also the question of the responsibility, around using these technologies or whatnot. I mean, for me, and again, I'm gonna go just with my example of what it was for me, because we tend to be really afraid of Saturn moving into any area of our lives. There's like and I'd like us really to rethink even astrology as everything just wants us to evolve and learn and grow, and ultimately for the better, not for the worse, and to be like our worst nightmares. And so for me, I was really like, even yesterday, down to yesterday, and even today, having my last little Saturn test of the final exam on Saturn in the third house. And when I'm saying the third house is because my rising is Sagittarius. So Saturn was transiting my whole third house this past 3 years. And what I noticed, what did I do this 3 years, or how did that feel for me? So first thing, that's when I started really diligently studying astrology. So interestingly enough, and I studied online. So I was very diligent in my third house of communication. It's not like higher education. It's more like when you do like courses and things like that. So, and I took a bunch of courses in astrology, like of all kinds. And I was literally like every day watching videos, doing my research and I took like so many courses online. And that's when I really took it seriously. And so I'm like, okay, that was one layer. The ability to be very disciplined in honing a new skill in that area of life. So I honed a skill in the area of communication, in the area of like studying, learning something new. That has to do with speaking, talking, interacting,
and maybe like adulting a little bit when it comes to speaking.
Oh,
you know,
yeah. And this is where Jessica also comes in, because Jessica, she is fabulous with words and how to use communication in a very efficient way. And I not only took, I took 2 workshops on nonviolent communication. I just the awareness of how I was not such a good communicator to get what you want, but get it in a responsible way by using communication in a good way. And then with Jessica, what happens is like, well, we're always telling me how to better word things, so Jessica's like a real expert in communication skills too. And yeah, I remember many instances where I would ask Jessica, what would you do, what would you say in this scenario, and then you would go and say things like, well, I don't know, what would you say to me?
I need an example.
Oh, an example, I don't know.
Make you do the work.
Make me do the work. So the example would be like, well, I don't know.
I think Saturnian communication, rather than being childish and putting the blame on someone else, it does allow us to channel a crystalline, pure intent in our own being, and able to rationally and logically and grounded, from that higher expression, be able to express our experience as it was, and then, make a request without making a demand, which makes me think of the nonviolent communication.
Yeah, well,
but adulting, right, from an integral place.
It's like making requests by understanding where your needs come from and making them clearly with clear communication. And I had to deal with this for the whole 3 years, like how to efficiently communicate with people without getting all emotional and tantrumy, like, and
probably definitely not, especially in the 3rd house, and then which is an air house, and then Aquarius being there. Exactly. A lot of air in there. Not really a highly emotional 3rd house necessarily.
And that's what's beautiful about nonviolent communication, is that it has this, it's how to use the mind, literally the words, and how we communicate to even put words to feelings that we don't know what we're experiencing. It's like abstract experiences of feeling and emotion, and being able to put actual words to them. So when we can define it, we can obviously then make it easier to make another person understand what we're going through. So that's kind of one of those layers. And I'm like, wow, it's incredible that throughout this whole 3 years I was studying nonviolent communication, studying things online, learning how to be a better communicator, also setting up my YouTube channel, like this YouTube channel, and working diligently on understanding even how this works. I had never done a live before, before this time. It was the first time I had to learn how to use these tools. So all of that was part of that for me. And the last, let's say, test, of the Saturn is also how mature I can be in having communication and requesting things I need, and from a very calm space. And I've had to have, like, literally make phone calls to people to resolve complex issues in my life, and it just worked out. And now I feel like, oh, those are the new skills that Saturn in my 3rd house in Aquarius wanted me to get. Skills around technology, around learning. I am now an astrologer. I set up my business. Like, so you see, it was what I call a healthy Saturn, which is what we all would like to strive for when Saturn moves into any area of our lives.
Is our own parent.
It's thank you, is our own parent, right? It's not, otherwise what happens if we're rejecting the responsibility of this, what happens is it shows up as a projection, and somebody outside ourselves is going to have to be that parent. So you're going to be going through all these situations that are difficult, and you're going to be whining like, why do I have to do this, but why do I have to, why did that happen to
the
me?
hard work of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also around the freedom is like, yes, we were restricted in our freedom quite a bit in the past 3 years, with no lockdowns, no being able to do certain things. Like, oh, we had to wear masks, or we had to do this, we had to do this. So there's like an external parent. But at the same time, it got me to question, well, if this is the world I want to live in, like, how can I also create other structures or structure my life in a way that gives me more freedom? So this is when I also moved to a farm, and I started having other kind of responsibilities, which is like growing food, and it's been really difficult. It's not an easy transition, but it was okay. It's an effort. This from Saturn,
and that's community is the third house too, isn't it? Like local.
Well, that's more the Aquarian, but yes, it's the local communities, or the localized.
And then the Aquarian there.
And then the Aquarian, which is
coming together.
Is coming together collectively.
Community,
the tribe,
communication.
So all of that kind of started happening for me, and when I moved with that community and learning precisely how to use communication skills, because you're no longer dealing with one person, like your partner or your parents, or you're dealing with a whole bunch of people. And what do? What tools do you use?
How to relate?
How do you relate? So that for me was such a key component of my whole 3 years. And was it difficult and horrible? And no. Were there challenges? Yes. And sometimes it felt really like I really had to step up in a certain sense to actually even learn how to
rise above the obstacles.
Rise above the obstacle. And was it
you
like
see the tiny little crack of light, but it doesn't feel like it necessarily in the darker side.
So this is kind of what I wanted to share with all of you, so that you look at where your Aquarius house is, because it's going to keep moving when Pluto moves in. But what happened? What happened for you in these 3 years in that area of life? So look at your rising sign, and then look at your chart. Look, where's Aquarius, and do a deep debrief on what did you learn. How did that feel for you, and how much resistance you had? Did it come from an inner sense of taking personal responsibility for something? Or did you have to go through difficult situations with people outside yourself, or situations outside yourself, to make you see how you could take responsibility in all these areas we just mentioned? So that's like the first debrief. So that was my experience. And I'm like, okay, you know what? And at the final exam yesterday, when I had to, be able to communicate, talk, ask for what I need, request calmly and clearly, have a good working flow with the people in the community and all of that, I'm like, wow, look now all the skills I have. And I can even confidently now sit and press a button on a live stream and say, well, all of this is part of that new set of skills that are going to be useful for the rest of my life. So look at Saturn in that way. So I would love for you to just leave me a comment. Let me know what's going on for you. Right. And then I wanted to ask for you, Jessica, would you like to share anything about your Saturn experience in Aquarius?
What just comes up for me when you're talking all about like the restrictions and limitations and like sort of the struggle that Saturn brings, I think, wow, it's really interesting because there's such a contrast in that. Because I know for me, the more I felt the restrictions, and I'm sure for other people, I just feel that other people will be able to relate to the sense of their own inner awakening around all the new freedoms that they want to like now savor and drink in and enjoy. We didn't have so much freedom for a while in so many ways, and we all experience that in our own unique way. But when we don't have something, our passion and our inner being just ignites the desire for the absence of it creates the desire for more. So I feel that through that experience, we all expanded. big time.
Yeah.
You know, and now is the time to savor the experiences that we all created through that time, and really bring it into a, like the word that we were talking about this morning, more into a compassion, into an emotional feeling space, not so much mental and not so much thinking.
Yeah, and that's going to be also a lot of what's going to come when Saturn moves into Pisces, and we will be discussing all these things. So as you do your review of Saturn in Aquarius through your whatever house, then when we review the themes that may come for Pisces, you can already have an idea of how you're going to be taking this, like, be mature about it with whatever situation. So what my take is, like, Saturn doesn't feel like a horrible thing. Like, it's more like the experiences in my life really bring me to question how I can do things, and how I can be responsible for my life, and it's okay, and it's great. It's almost like when you step up with Saturn and you say yes to those challenges, it doesn't feel like
because it brings
horrible.
you down to earth, right?
It brings you down
it's
to
not
earth.
Like a balloon floating up into the ethers, which sounds great.
Yeah.
Also.
So if you like to share anything else about your experience of Saturn, or not, or we can move on to Saturn in Pisces, whatever you feel.
Well, I mean, we were talking about this morning, and I was sharing, I mean, Saturn is and has been and still is in my first house. And same with Pluto, having a Pluto square. But yeah, having it in the first house, that was the conversation I was inspired to talk about today. It was just talk to me about the energy of the first house. So we're talking about the energy of the first house, and what that led to was, we put on a little play and sort of did a reenactment, because I've been having some suffering around my body and my appearance. That's just one part of it.
Or just Jessica having issues with her appearance, but yes, that's part of Saturn.
I'm starting to get like age spots, and noticing that. Yes. And that feels very ugly. That's the association that I have created, or society's created, whatever, but it's in my space. And it was interesting to talk about it with Tatiana, because she says, I don't really think about that when it comes to my own physical appearance. I thought, really? But it inspired a little.
I have a wart.
Yeah, that's what she called my age spots, warts. And I thought, my God, that took it to an extreme.
But okay, so would you like? Okay, could we share a little bit what happens?
Well, that was very cool
to have that realization of what happens when Saturn goes through the first house. So Jessica says to me, "Yeah, I have this little spot here," and I'm like, "What spot?" "Yeah, but it's really ugly," and I'm like, "Huh? Okay," and I'm like, "I have one of those," and whatever, I don't really think about it, and it's right in my face. I can show it to you. Look, here it is. So then it broke out into a musical scene. And here's how the musical scene was. Then Jessica is in the middle of the field, and then we're singing.
I'm kind of like crouched forward and no shirt on, I suppose, but I'm covered, but it's there's marks on my back,
and then
so I'm leaning forward,
and there's the scene,
and it's dark.
There's all the dancers that come, and they're dressed as wards.
Horrible,
and they're like,
ugly wards.
"I'm the ward, you're ugly, ward, you're ugly," and then it's attacking her, and she's in this dark, and then there's all these beautiful people walking really far,
just perfect skin,
and they're looking down, and they and they sing the chorus, ha 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 ha. Harmonies go, ha 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 ha, and it goes on and on. It's this whole musical scene, and suddenly when we started going in that realm of we took it to a place where it almost became ridiculous to think about.
It's a despair energy. It's how it feels. Very powerless.
Yeah. And then when we brought it back to, okay, we just made this whole play in our heads.
Yeah.
And we sang. then it's like, oh, so that is what
What a
Saturn,
drama.
what a drama. Like, that's how Saturn and Pluto is also going in your first house, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what a drama,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
What a display, you know, of darkness and horror.
Darkness, yeah, horror. That's what it felt like, a horror show.
A horror
That's like a
show.
living nightmare.
And it's like, it's only a tiny, teeny little warty thing in the middle of your
quiet.
back that nobody ever sees. So how are those voices in our heads so present and so big that even a little teeny word can create a whole universe of unloving situations for ourselves? So,
and what it almost like funny to have it be such an entertaining and enjoyable experience to bring that into sort of like a theatrical space, because then you can really see all the and all the, we gave it a lot of time to sort of evolve and have the voices come out of, oh, you know, like you said, oh, you're definitely never going to be loved again. And it brought a comedy, like a satire energy to it.
Yeah, I was like, obviously, Jessica, no one's ever going to love you again.
You.
It's over.
Yeah.
Your life is over. Nobody will ever talk to you again because you have that word and you're so ugly.
You know what I feel is that it brought a level of awareness of detachment, because otherwise you're in the problem. And being in the problem, there's this sort of like a meshment that where you're not really getting clarity, right? And having that visuals, even there was no light energy in that drama. It was even the white beings were, you know, it was bringing up like, oh, well, that's unfair, and that's over there, and that's not my experience. That's lucky them. Like, you know, it just deepened the dark feelings. So it wasn't present, but having the space to actually speak to it. It's really, and I got really healing.
And what's very interesting about today precisely is that we have the Jupiter Venus Chiron conjunction still active. So it's interesting how we can bring like beauty, grace, expansion. And for me, which is in my fifth house, it's interesting how it's the fifth house of creativity. We could even bring healing to whatever topics are happening now. Today is also the full moon, so it's a big energy that is kind of showing a lot of themes. It's like the graduating things from Saturn moving now into Pisces, which we will talk about. But with respect to that first house, and Jessica still having Saturn in her first house, moving through her first house still for like a year, and having that big awareness, like that big awareness around how, you know, the not feeling pretty, feeling that there's wrinkles and there's warts and or whatever. And I'm like, where does that even come from? Because in my perception, it's like, I don't see any of that. But our own perceptions bring us to have a different outlook on ourselves. So by feeling all of that, then we can start having also options and knowing that we can react in mature ways. We can either do tantrums again, and get into the I'm just so horrible, it's not even a
very
word.
victim.
The victim.
That, in my case, that I would say.
Yeah, the victim. Yeah. Or it can bring us to say, okay, what are all my choices? And there's different choices. There's choices around.
I like how we took the play evolved, because it left us with the feeling like, wow, that was really enlightening and illuminating to see that in like kind of a 3D image, right? But where do we leave, like, let's say if there was an audience, or where does that leave us, the human?
Yeah.
Where to next, you know? And it is a matter of perception and personal experience, because for example, with me and my moles, as you say, warts, well, when you're a witch, I guess, when the shoe fits. I'm kidding. But then we kind of created another character where I was off the stage, and then somebody else went in, and they were the central you know, person, and they were struggling because they had lost all their hair, and they had an experience of that feeling that I was, you know, experiencing. And then now I'm in their play, but in a different perspective, because I have this long hair. And so now, you know, and then you know, it kind of carried on, and there was another character that
so if you have long hair and there's like a bold character that comes, oh, I'm so ugly, I'm so horrible, then for her it will be like it will lead to seeing like, oh, I could choose to say to this person, well, you know, it's not that bad, or you could choose to say, oh yeah, you're bold and horrible, you know, or what that means, to put things in perspective. And And then we took like the Chiron archetype moving.
Mhm.
Like, what if an angel that has had the same feelings and emotions came to you and said, you know, I give you permission
Mhm.
to feel how you're feeling, to not like what you like.
Yeah, don't try to force yourself to like
To
something
like
that you don't
it.
like,
Yeah.
right? Because that creates more, like you said, more resistance,
More
more of
res-
that Saturn resistance with the heels in the
And-
ground. Like you want to be on the earth walking, not like be crumpled,
Yeah.
but not also with your feet completely dug in, so
Yeah.
you're not moving at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah.
and then it's like when the angel comes and says it's okay, you
Would
know,
it feel
I've had
right?
warts as well and moles, and I search for different ways to either accept it, love it, or change it, and you have permission. You
Mhm.
too can do that. And this completely opens up perspective on how we can take responsibility, and that's the Saturn part
Oh, yeah. Oh, that
of,
just,
of
yeah.
yeah, we can take responsibility with our own bodies.
In the physical world, what choices can you make?
Perfect. Let's repeat.
In the physical world, what choices can you make? Because it does have an element of freedom in that Aquarian energy too, right? I mean, there's freedom in choice. And sometimes it doesn't feel like you have freedom. And certainly in the despair energy that I had associating with that, the horror nightmare association, definitely no freedom in that. You just create more and more frequency of that.
Yeah,
right?
you're almost like a slave to your own thoughts and your own thinking process. And also, you know, in the Aquarius themes, it's like, well, if Aquarius also represents like the collective and people, it's like, oh, it's how do I fit in when I'm so different, so I'm so horrible?
You
and
may not feel like you fit in too.
yeah,
right?
it's like I have a word, I'm horrible, like I will never fit in, you know, because I have a mole or whatever. And so yes, how do we navigate that? And so these are all themes, again, these are all themes that every person could have experienced in different ways, and this is why I wanted to bring up this theme. So you now, when we talk about Saturn moving into Pisces, you can start thinking about the possible themes that will come through. So let's move into our second segment of Saturn moving into Pisces. Ta-da! Okay, so
feels a little bit like a
yeah,
deep just something crumbling, you know,
crumbling, dissolving.
Yeah, that's a nice word. Yeah, just
Yeah.
like a different space. I think we've been waiting for this space for quite a while.
Yes, the Saturn moving into Pisces space. Okay, so let's talk about archetypes of Saturn. And obviously, we'll talk about Saturn, the limitations, call to maturity, call to
earth energy,
to reality checks,
concretizing things,
concretizing, adding structures, what else?
Integrity, authority.
All of that is going to be put into the Pisces archetype.
Divinity and mindfulness.
So let's start. So Pisces, let's talk a little bit about Pisces, and then how odd it is to have the ocean of consciousness with little glasses of water in it. You know, like
wow, cool.
It's trying to put the oceans of consciousness in a glass of water. And you know, it's very odd because the ocean wants to flow. It doesn't want to be it doesn't want to be in a glass. So
kind of a natural sextile, isn't it? Because the 10th house and the 12th house, is there like a natural house sort of balancing with the water and the earth a little bit easier? Perhaps I shouldn't say easier, that sounds a bit judgmental.
You mean the Pisces to the Capricorn energies?
Yeah.
Like
it's sort of a natural sextile in terms of houses.
It is like the Capricorn and the Pisces do function as a possibility. Like all sextiles are these possibilities when we look at what can come from acknowledging that energy. It's possibility. That's why sextiles are usually kind of overlooked, because they're not like that obvious. You have to kind of lean into it to get its benefit. That's the difference between the trine and the sextile. Is the trine, the energy is there, is available, and it just happens, whereas the sextile is that
potential.
It's a potential.
Oh,
It's there. The energy could be there, but you need to look. You need to lean into it and go, oh,
wow.
I can lean into this energy, and that will bring the
It's
time.
a natural fit, and yet you don't necessarily consciously know it's a natural fit.
Exactly. You might not even notice it's there at all.
Fascinating.
So with that natural sextile, yes, obviously, it's like, this is like, if this is the center of my being and this is my heart, and there's a divine connection to the ethers, to all that is, to something beyond us, to God's source consciousness, whatever we feel it is. And we're these physical beings with a brain, an interface, the brain, and we have biology, cells, and all the complexity. And we have this other brain, which is the heart, that has all these neurons and can perceive the the like beyond the physical five senses. And then we have the groundedness of our whole physical body, that is actually very biologically physical. We need food. We ache, our bones break. Like, we're matter. We're condensed. We're slowed down energy, which is the Saturn function, literally. So from that philosophical perspective, Saturn in Pisces is almost like taking this vast ocean and putting it, is like incarnating it, literally. Is the incarnation of the vast consciousness again and again in a psychic way, because it's putting literally taking the ocean and putting in little glasses of water. So what happens when we put the ocean in a glass of water? We might think that we're separate from the ocean. That's probably the first archetypal feel, is that we might feel that we are not the ocean because we've been separated from it. So that could cause depression, because it's like, I'm alone in this universe. This reality is really difficult. Depression, sadness, I'm disconnected, disconnection. And that could be, for example, one of Saturn's first call to us is like, we're going to disconnect you, or give the illusion of disconnection, so you can actually find the connection within the water you have in the glass. And notice that that water is the exact same water. It's not outside the ocean, it's just inside the ocean, but it feels like it's no longer connected.
Gives it a physical sense within a watery body.
So that could be one interpretation of things that could happen, that we feel suddenly that we're really disconnected, that there's no hope, and that we're not divine beings. And that could lead to certain depression. So here's what we can take as an action portion. We can seek and choose to seek within ourselves and recognize that divine water that's still there. And through actual, real spiritual practices, whatever spiritual means, and we'll touch on the pop spirituality in a bit. What does that really mean, to have a real connection to something that's beyond? So if it's gone, how do I actually realize that being in this physical body also means being divine, and that connection is always there when it might feel or seem that it's not there? So first little, okay, what are you going to do about it? How do you reconnect? Do you reconnect through prayer, through silence? Do you reconnect through a daily practice? Do you reconnect by tuning in and recognizing that the water's still there, it's not gone, despite everything that might seem so chaotic and depressing outside of you? First thing. Second thing, do you recognize that everything you think or believe is what creates that reality? Therefore, what are you seeing within yourself? That's a second option. So themes along those lines might come into your awareness and your being. And yeah, so what do you think about this particular one iteration of that Saturn in Pisces?
I love it. And what comes up for me is more to that is Saturn associates with work, you would say.
Yeah, with creating structures and matter. Yeah,
sure. And then Pisces, I do feel a deep connection to heart energy and love
and flow.
Yeah, so I feel like that merging is a really cool thing. Whether it's adding structures around your work, it's built around, a really sustainable, heart-centered vision.
Sustainable heart-centered vision.
Yeah.
That is the next part of Saturn into Pisces. Compassion, and I'm going to talk about this word, like having compassion is almost having passion with.
Well, there's the word passion, right?
There's the word passion in it, and it's like passion with, meaning almost like I feel what you feel. I am with you. I am in you and within you, and because I feel what you feel, I can relate. This is compassion. If I do this, and then I'm like, oh, it's hurting me. Oh, I have compassion for you because I can feel you. You see, so in the Piscean flow, because again, our ocean is really not separate. The illusion of being separate is that there is a bottle inside of the ocean and we just put a little cap. So it feels like it's separate, but still the same water. If we were to poke a little hole, it's the same water. So that compassion.
Sharing the same,
so
the same space.
What could happen, it's a call for compassion. So
come
passion, come to me. Yeah, come passion. Yeah, so the passion that will come to me.
Don't pass me by.
Yeah, so what happens when we are faced with situations where we will have to be compassionate? So if we're not already aligning with that in our, especially if you're a very Saturnian being, like strict and you want to control things and be like, and know best with the other instead of understanding where the other's coming from, like I know best, you might feel like, you might experience it's more resisting. It's harder. There's more resistance. So the caller and the invitation is going to be like, can you truly be compassionate, or is this just a part of like our pop spirituality? I practice a lot of cool meditation and cool spiritual tools, but when the real time comes for a time where you need to actually be compassionate with another being,
I wonder if it will be a time of sort of collectively dissolving, what we've come to learn about rules.
What do you mean by that?
Just Saturn is someone that might impose
rules. Rules and regulations are totally on the Saturnian.
Yeah, so I wonder if it will like emerge newly. Of course, things are always evolving, so I don't mean it to sound general, but
So yeah, my thought is that as we move through Saturn Pisces, we might have a new understanding about rigid structures. That bottle is an illusion. I think that's kind of what we will
rules that are really coming through like a loving space,
which are more
connected, right, from the inside out, not just imposed.
Yeah, my thought is that by the end of this transit, we might actually feel much more solidary and connected to others. Truly. And it could be again through the boot, the hardship, or like by feeling really truly disconnected or having very difficult situations that we're going to have to face, so that we actually step up to being compassionate. So I don't know, it could be something happens in any area of your life, and this is why look at what area of your life Saturn will be transiting through Pisces. Where is Pisces in your chart? Look at the area of your life and think, is it in myself? Is it in my resources, how I make money, what I value? Is it in the how I communicate, how I relate to others? Is it in my home, my family, my roots? I'm going house by house. Is it in the fifth house of creativity, expression, self-expression, children, and so on and so forth? Like, where is it? So you can start seeing, where is it going to be? Where is this glass gonna kind of move and separate me from something that I'm gonna have to step up with that
compassionate, self-governed rules, defining your own rules,
defining your own rules, but through genuine compassion.
Yes, for your being,
and therefore for others.
Yeah,
because you are
what
the
feels
others.
right. Yeah, integral. Yeah. That word integrity really comes up
for
me today.
I think that's something that will be brought up. Those themes of compassion are going to be really big, especially because Saturn because it's a structure, it's not really concerned with flow. That brings us to the third point, the flow point, meaning we are going to be faced with needing to learn to flow by connecting to a higher and I don't like the hierarchical sound of this, but
Lighter?
or another part of yourself or ourselves that is beyond us, basically.
The spiritual side?
The spiritual side, whatever that means. And how are we going to learn to tap into that intuitive place
That's so beautiful.
that is divine? So it's like, am I divided by my own little will? I want this way and I want that way, because I'm like, Saturn tends to control things because he can, because he has these very set strict structures and strictures. So what happens when it's in Pisces? Pisces tends to, like, it's this like dissolution. So Saturn is like, oh, I want to be strict, but I can't. So it's like, how are we going to learn to flow and flow responsibly? So basically tuning in. Okay, I'm going to do a practice so I can tune into what my intuition, which means that is of the Piscean realm, tells me. How can I channel that properly? By opening my higher centers, letting it move through my body, moving all the way down, being aware of where the message is coming through, tuning in, and saying, okay, what needs to be done now concretely is this. And that brings me back. I mean, I just got this from a quote from Neil Donald Walsh in the book Conversations with God. It's one of the most beautiful quotes for me. As in the book, it says, whenever there's any situation, the question is, what would love do in this situation? And I think that's going to be part of this Saturn moving into Pisces experience. It's like we're going to put into experiences time and again where this question will come up. What would love do? And if we have the choice of what would love do and actually move by that loving divine guidance of what would love do in this situation, we might actually get really good, very skilled eventually at tuning in what would love do and acting from that place, as opposed to what would fear do, and then acting from the control mechanisms, the societal expectations. And I feel that there's a word that will start dissolving within the next 3 years, and that word is called expectation. This word will literally dissolve into the ether. The reason I'm saying this,
tell me more.
Yeah, okay. I know. I'm in a stream of consciousness right now. I'm channeling my Saturn inspiration Pisces through my beautiful tube.
My clump.
Why do I think this is a word that's going to start dissolving? Because expectation is creating a future possibility, is a structure of future that doesn't exist, and putting a like a must or a should or a has to in that future.
Feels like a Saturnian word.
That is very expectation is totally a Saturnian word, because it's like, well, it's a future projection of something, of a reality that looks like this. And what happens when you can't control that, really? If you were really in the now, feeling and sensing, and this is the Piscean realm, sensing the vibration, the tiny little vibrations that tell you, you know, this is what's happening now. If you're expecting, you're already in a mechanism of control of a place that you need. I want to go there, and if it's not there, I'm going to be frustrated. So there's this kind of like harshness to it. So Pisces is going to ask, you know what? Can you just flow with what is and accept what is, and accept it beautifully and wholeheartedly as everything that exists just is. And with that isness,
a cosmic,
yes, so everything has a place, everything has a reason for existing, and even the things we would deem like judge, because that's another very Saturnian word, is judgment, as moralistic judgment of good, bad, wrong. This is the way it should be because it's better, and all of that brings hierarchy, which is Saturn. Better is a Saturnian word in the sense that it's up here. It's better than, meaning there's a vertical. In this concept of Pisces, there's no better and worse. There's just what is, and everything is just different.
Flow state.
Yeah, and everything is just an experience of a frequency that's different from another frequency, because we are the ones giving judgments usually to everything by our moral upbringings, by the patterns, by society, by all the Saturnian structures that our parents told us or whatever. What I'm sensing is that, what I'm sensing is that the Saturnian realm gets dissolved suddenly into, can you actually just accept what is and not giving a judgment value of better or worse, or it should be this way or that way, or expect it to be different because you just want it to be different. So we're going to be faced with this. So the more we want to control situations, the more we want to believe that we're better than, or that we have the better answer to something as opposed to somebody else because they think differently or whatever, that's going to be put into question. It's like, well, if you are that person, like, who are you to judge that person? So it's interesting how we might be also brought to dissolve that Saturnian. So the more Saturnian we get, the more we're posed with the same question, like, can we actually be more like?
And I do hope that people reach for, of course we can go on the opposite spectrum and say, oh, maybe there's going to be, earthquakes or shortages with large water bodies, versus, but not necessarily going there, or, people restricting how much water, or, controlling it could go there. But in a more individual, on a more light, higher, more positive space, maybe somebody who's been drinking alcohol at an excessive amount, maybe they're now with Saturn moving into that space, maybe they're reaching for healthier practices, with that. Or maybe people that are bringing mindfulness into their daily practice or whatnot, maybe they bring it in deeper, more.
That brings me to the fourth point.
Oh.
Yeah, that's great, because that's exactly what you're saying. It's like people are gonna, with mental health issues, which is a total Saturn in Pisces kind of theme, where the mind starts like collapsing, literally collapsing and depressing, and then we might see more mental health issues. A lot of people might be, again, pushed to seek avenues, healthier avenues to take care of their emotional and their mental states.
Soul purification.
So what could happen is that we see probably maybe also more teachers that show up in the world to teach techniques, like actual physical techniques that are spiritual in nature, like, if you do qigong and this is how the energy moves, and it's very practical. We might see also lots of new technologies around how to deal with the invisible into the visible, into how to use our the most beautiful piece of equipment, which is this, which I have equated to, we have this amazing airplane and we use it as a kitchen. That's my analogy of how clueless we are about the amazing physical vessel we have, that if we really knew how it works, instead of like, oh, it's an airplane, but we don't know it's an airplane, it can fly, we just use it as a kitchen because we don't know how it works. So what could happen is we start understanding more the actual workings, scientifically workings of how our bodies are made of energy, how the energy centers work, what to do, where are the points. It's like in Chinese medicine, we have, meridians, and the ancients kind of have known things for this like ages. So we know now that this is, it's available. Now, what Saturn says is like, all of these tools are available. Now it's up to you to have the responsibility to use them. So you have a mental health issue, you're in the hole.
Yeah, it's
here's the tool.
It's a mirror, right? Saturn can be a mirror.
A mirror.
And the word body does come in. Although I know we associate, like the ascendant more with the body, can it relate to the body, or Mars is the physical body, things like that. But the word body is coming up quite a bit. So I do feel like there's that physical, tangible, like we've been talking about with the earth and everything. But I feel that maybe the consciousness coming into the body deeper and having that reflection, a more connected
sense of connecting
almost
to your physical body and learning to read from your own body. Is that kind
like a merging of your physical and your inner physical human self and your inner being, like almost like your inner beings gotta like on a microphone, you know?
Oh, how would that be? Like
it's a little louder.
So I'm feeling like maybe something happened and I'm emotionally distressed. And then suddenly I go like, okay, instead of like tantrum, panic, alcohol bottle, okay, I'm fine now. Or shoot me something. I want to be okay. Then it's like, wait
source
a minute.
love, you know, source light, source love is just a little bit more prominence, a little bit more speaking, giving you those solutions for reaching for a next feeling thought that feels just a little bit better, and then able to amplify that and able to integrate it deeper with that integrity that Saturn brings into the body, and
so something
able to sort of bring that Saturnian energy of like, you know, climbing that ascension little step by little step. Just like making little practical adjustments.
And it's like, for example, like my example, oh, panic, something happened, let's scan. Why did I get triggered? Instead of lashing out at a person, like without understanding that they come from us, from whatever. If somebody does something to you, instead of lashing out, it's like, okay, not even thinking about it. It's more like, oh, my body felt a contraction. So the healthy Saturn practice would be, I have a tool. It's like, I notice where in my body is here. And then you have the little people in there that say, it's really loud in here. The reason why this is happening is because you have felt in the past that you were restricted in this or that way or whatever. Like little voices come from your body, and the body speaks, and then we learn the tool of connecting into our body
feelings
and deeper feelings. So that way, instead of blaming people outside of you for all your terrible life experiences, it's more like it's everybody's fault. It's like, oh, I'm getting triggered, I'm getting uncomfortable, and I have a technology within me that it's the capacity and the ability to connect to actually something very tangible, which
and
is
if Saturn thank you.
Saturn.
It's like you put it right in my mouth, because I was like, my mouth was open waiting for it. Saturn cereal. I don't know if I'd buy that.
Saturn cereal? That would be so fun.
Cosmic cereal. Oh my god, it's all the planets.
Never mind. Okay, back on track.
It's in milk. Oh my god. Funny.
So Saturn. You lost your
Oh shoot.
So I was saying that you connect to your body because you can feel the tangibility, which is Saturn, also is the embodiment. So technically it will be the embodiment of spirit. Literally, the embodiment of a spirit. That's one other Saturnian Pisces. So
I was going to say something along the lines of, with Saturn having such contrast in that the limitations, and then with Pisces having such a expansion in the divine love and mindfulness and connection to, you know, that flow state and that emotion, that combination, that polarity or that tension will just create a deeper self-autonomy or a deeper contrast within your own being to feel into those solutions yourself.
Yeah, feel into those solutions yourself, which to me also speaks of self-authority. You are no longer looking for external solutions for all your problems. You are able to resolve them yourself because you have a wealth of internal information, only if you are willing to go towards it. And that's why if people are aligned with true spiritual practices that are not rooted in pop spirituality, and I'm going to talk about pop spirituality. This is one of my favorite topics, because maybe a lot of people that deem to be also spiritual, which is nothing wrong with that, but we've seen in recent years, last time that Saturn was in Pisces was 1994 to 1996. So whatever was happening in that time for you, it's good to go back to those years and see what was happening, so you can see similar themes and see how you've grown in those themes, because that may appear again to you. So 1994 and 1996, what was happening for you? Good thing to keep a diary. Anyway, so well, that way you can go back and read this is what's happening. So so the pop spirituality is a little bit like when something becomes a fad, there's some kind of great thing that has a purpose, and then just becomes a fad without substance, and it waters down. So we've seen, with a lot of what we call new agey practices, that a lot of them, which are very genuine, can tend to become watered down. Basically, it's like the person that goes to church, and I give this as examples, prays, they wash all their sins away or confesses, and then the rest of the week they just start again, because next weekend they can go and confess again. That's it's kind of that example, which is like, well, so what's the purpose of you praying and washing all your sins, and then the rest of the week it's just you did it again because you can go and confess again. So it's like, Saturn in this time will go like, that's not going to work anymore. Same with pop spirituality, I did like this, I'm doing all these ceremonies, and I know that there's an abundance now of like cacao ceremony and ceremony for this and shaman that, and then there is journey with psychedelics, and there's all these things, and ayahuasca, and we have been seeing these things to be more and more and more and more popular. So that's when it becomes pop, because it's popular. But sometimes when it becomes popular, it loses the depth, it loses the root, and it loses the actual cause. I'm not saying that this is for everyone and everything that practices this way or offers this. I'm just saying that sometimes that tends to be watered down, and we disconnect from the real purpose. So now the ritual itself we become obsessed with the ritual and forget the essence. What I'm saying with this, for instance, rituals, and I'm very ritualistic person. I know, like, you have your sage, and sage does this, and then we have you put our altars and whatever. Those are all rituals, and humanity and all cultures have rituals. My belief around rituals is that a ritual, because it's something that you repeat and it has meaning, crystallizes thought, so that we want to bring into our lives really crystallizes. But if you ask me quantumly, it doesn't matter whether or not you put the candle here or the sage there, or like, because what really counts in the end is how you're connected to the energy, how you're connected to the frequency and the intention. That's really, in the end, what really matters. Whether you have a candle or a figure, or that's ancillary, right? It's external, and it's fine, it has a purpose. However, when the ritual becomes the important thing, the paraphernalia, the having the beads and the crystals, and that becomes what's important, then we have lost the cause and
the intentionality.
So if we could go back to the very internal intentionalities, like maybe even wanting to have the ritual to be so perfect, and if it doesn't work, then you're all pissed. Then they'll say, well, why are you all pissed? Like, wasn't the intention to see if you could connect to compassion, love? And so I don't know if something went wrong. I don't know. So same with psychedelics and journeys and all those tools that have been given to us to connect to spirit, which will be more available as well. And the rise of using psychedelics in psychotherapy. This is all
normalizing.
It's going to be normalized, but with that normalization, it's very important to ask the question: how responsible are we with how we're using our access to the consciousness? So that will bring.
And are we grabbing the light, or are we grabbing the illusion? But I mean,
and even
that's the journey.
And even there's a journey, we go in journey. So it's like, how responsible are we with these things? And that's another word for Saturn. Saturn is going to bring responsibility to that. So people that just do, for example, psychedelics just for fun, because I'm going on a trip, and then and then you go on the trip, you take the DMT or whatever, you're off flying into space, you've seen all the world, and you've seen all the dimensions and the angels, and then you come back to your daily life, and you have not changed anything in your life. You still probably hate your job, or I don't know, you lash out at people, like, I don't know, whatever it is, that's still like, okay, we're supposed to be,
purifying
a function of your being. And
for what purpose?
So is that really being acted out in reality in your everyday life? Are you really taking those lessons? And by this, I'm not saying that people who do these things don't do it. I'm just saying that it has also been commonplace. And if I'm talking to you right now, and you're that person, I would just really invite you to consider, have I been doing this a little bit mindlessly, or have I been doing this really responsibly? And even further, why? What other tools do I have? And what are all my tools, and how do we use spiritual tools, which come from the plants nature. So this is where we go and use plant medicine, and I even include like marijuana. I include anything that's from nature. So first thing, plant medicine. How are we using that? Do we understand the frequencies and the vibrations, and what do they open up for us? Do we really understand the contracts we made at soul levels with every interaction we have? Like, all of that is going to come into our awareness as, are you responsible with how you, first of all, do that?
It's like a self-governing healing component, and then also government healing as well. The both of those.
How do you
together.
How do you govern the other side with responsibility? And likewise, if you're somebody teaching or showing or others, is how responsible are you with those tools as well?
And I wonder if the word responsibility, which can be a badass, I mean, word, word. It can be really fun to feel like, I guess that's the thing, is it fun to feel that way? I wonder also if the word responsibility has a similar vibration to alignment. Like, if one was in alignment, being responsible with your choices. Are you being responsible with your choices? But then in another area of life, are you, I heard you say, are you hating on people, or are you lashing out? It's like, is it sort of, you're not necessarily congruent or in alignment,
coherent? And
some of your, but isn't that all humans? Like, you have a part of your, channel, you're open, and then other, because there's so much in our
information
space, some of those thoughts are really positive. Others are more gummed up. And so I think it's like, are we clearing, by going out and doing those explorations, are we truly clearing our being, clearing our vibration, or are we just escaping?
Exactly. And
them, and then coming back to reality. But do we have to really even look at current reality, like, as what is so, or can we create, we're always creating? So if it feels good to venture out and do those experiences, and it equally feels good to,
because you make it from a conscious choice. And that brings me to that. I understand what you mean. It's like, if we are coherent with our choices, and this is where the part of Saturn comes in, can we be in alignment? And alignment for me sounds like coherence. Coherence is, I think this, I feel this, I say this, I act this. It's kind of all the same thing, because it makes sense. But if I feel this and I act different, there's no coherence, and therefore that creates disruption. And the invitation of the Saturn is going to be coherent. So if my choice is indeed to go and do something that I know absolutely that will have an impact on anything, because it's not about good or bad, it's about impact. What's the impact? It doesn't matter. Is something happened? An asteroid hits the Earth, there's an impact, and things happen. Oh, evil asteroid! Like, no, it just happened, right? So in the same manner, when we make choices of any kind,
are we in alignment with those choices?
Are we in alignment with those choices, understanding the impact, and that impact ripples through the whole fabric of existence and the collective consciousness. So the Saturn is going to be almost like bringing us to that awareness of impact. So when we're not in alignment, you betcha that these 3 years, you will feel it, and you will get those Saturn lessons, so that you get in alignment. And alignment is alignment with your own true divine being. It's not the ego desires and needs for control and manipulation and all of that stuff. It's is okay if I know that this is impacting a being, and that could be me. That's where compassion goes in. What would love do? And I go back to my question of, what would love do? Am I in alignment with this impact? Or, okay, I'm aware of the impact, and I'm going to do it anyways. And I am responsible for taking on whatever karmic implication that means. Meaning, if I have this impact, I know I will receive that in some form.
Yeah.
In another way.
Embodying the divine love, through the lens, through the light, and through the vision.
So that's going to be part of it. So by the end of this transit, we could definitely expect a lot of things will happen. People who will resist this completely, and the Saturn transit will feel difficult, depressing, disconnected, hopeless. We could go into victim consciousness with the Pisces, like, well, I'm a victim of the circumstances. That's one way it could play out if we don't have this higher awareness. And this is why it's so great to know astrology, because astrology gives us this tool, like, hey, you even have a tool here. Use it or not, and the divine doesn't care if you use it or not. The divine just loves you. So basically, I feel that through this transit we're going to probably learn to be a little bit more like that divine loving essence. So maybe by the
embodying it, I think, is a great word for that. I think that's the word I'm hearing more.
Divine consciousness. And
because if we don't have the physical component, I mean, obviously source energy and divine energy being wherever they are in source, the non-physical, the neat thing about this human experience is that we got to be in the physical form. And I feel right now there's going to be like a really beautiful magnification or amplification of those beautiful essences coming, merging together, and having an opportunity for that source love to really, be felt deeper and deeper, maybe deeper than ever before.
And I feel it's more like a from here, down, and back. It's going to become this. So our vessels are going to be really important through this transit. Like connecting to our physical vessel and knowing again that your fabulous airplane is an airplane, not a kitchen. And when we learn this, then we will gain what Saturn does. It will give you skills, so actual practical spiritual tools to cope with all kinds of situations, to have fun with, and to even become more compassionate. Play with it. Know, okay, what is my impact on this? What if I made this choice? Experiment. How can I flow also with existence and know that I'm not really in control? Who's in control is something even bigger than me.
The divine,
So can I flow with the divine and the divine will, or am I going to still resist the divine will? And all of these things will be themes that will come into our social fabric again, because Saturn is a social planet. We will see it in society. I bet you that by the end of this transit, everybody will know what a chakra is.
I really think that
like everybody will understand, and maybe our understanding of chakras is going to be even more clear than the little pictures with the little wheels. You know what I mean? That there's going to be more of a true understanding from within.
Rather than everybody's feeling it.
Rather than I read it in the book, or I saw it in the website, or something someone mentioned. I do chakra
like tuning. An external relationship to it, more internal.
It's going to be an internal. That's by the end of the transit. I feel a lot of us are going to be okay. I have
more feeling like of relating to the experience of what a chakra is from the inside out.
Yeah, and I can give you, and again, a little experience just to close our little talk. I did have an experience as Saturn is right now at this exact moment in time is conjuncting my IC, so my fourth house, the angle. And if you have any personal planets or angles, and you're gonna have a Saturn transiting through there, just pay attention, because that's when things happen that make you realize. Obviously, when everything is fine and dandy, we have no reason to be super spiritual, because why? Everything's going well. What happens the day that something goes wrong? Can we access that? What would love do? And I have a little example that was like, oh, is that good foreshadowing? I had an issue with my house, literally, like as Saturn was exactly conjoining my IC, my whole house almost almost didn't burn because there was no fire. But I woke up, there was a fire alarm, smelled like smoky. I'm like panicking. My appliances like fried, literally my heater, the heating, the dishwasher, like everything. I was like, then I went into panic mode, obviously. Like, who am I going to blame? The whole world. What anger I'm going to have, what frustration. So I sat with all that, and knowing what I know about astrology, I'm like, okay, rise up to this. And obviously, it was also a friend of mine who had been doing a wonderful work to help me get more power. Actually, there was something that went wrong on their end. And my choice could have been, I'm going to just lash out at this person and tell them how incompetent they are, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just find someone to blame and make them pay for their mistakes or whatever. And something in me just went, And I went, wow, what if this had been me and I'm trying to help somebody and I unintentionally do something that I had no control over, or so
it's like dissolving the abruptness of the reaction, you know?
And that's exactly what happened. And I'm like,
melting.
Whoa, what a foreshadowing of this transit. And it was my house, so home in the fourth house, my literal house. It also prompted me to, okay, I need insurance. This is real. I cannot just dream that everything's, it's like, okay, there are real things. So I'm going to get insurance. And Mercury was conjuncting also my Saturn, the Saturn conjunction Mercury so I was like, oh, I need to grow up in these areas. I need to also grow up in my emotions and my responses, because the responses, the fourth house is where you have literally your lunar mechanism, or your responses, your emotional responses. So I'm like, I had to literally hold myself, and I was panicking, but I was like, can I hold myself? Can I hold myself and tell myself that there's solutions and parent myself? And when I felt this need to parent myself,
it's like a soothing, really.
It was a wild ride. It was exhausting energetically, because honestly, I felt vulnerable. I felt powerless. I felt frustrated. Like, all of that was there. So it's not that it was gone, but that is what Saturn does. It will create these situations where that happens, and then what? So my choice was what I told him. Like, no, I'm going to choose. What will love do? Okay, I'm going to be compassionate first with the beings that were trying to help me. I'm going to be responsible with taking action and communicating with what's going on. Like, And as I did this, everything just flipped and turned. Not only like this person was because they were generally sorry about what had happened, and I was like, it's okay. And then it was what happened was this. There was a complete shift in the energy, where there was this amazing love that just poof. I was like, wow, so this is what happens when we do this. This is what happens. And I'm expecting maybe more situations and lessons, because the idea is to have mastery within that. So it's like, oh, wow, okay, I could expect more of this, where I have to have emotional maturity. Like, maybe it's going to be with family, because the home for me is family, the roots. Maybe I'm going to have to face difficult situations for my family, or where I'm going to have more compassion or more openness. Or who knows? But I'm like, okay, this is foreshadowing already the themes for me. I'm like, okay, wow, it's interesting. And that was a very specific incident, so specific and archetypally on point, that I was like, okay, I can see how this could play out, and the benefits and the perks of choosing your spiritual practices. And this is because I already have a lot of spiritual tools that I've gathered over the years, and I've done a lot of work in that area. So not that I'm perfect, not that I have the Jesus certificate, but at least I have an understanding that I wish others had more and more. And
you have a
myself,
relationship with your inner being, right?
Yeah, I could say that I have a high self-awareness. And does that mean that I'm perfect? I by no means no. Well, maybe. Okay. But what I'm saying is, like, if I had these tools, and I didn't have these before, these tools, I didn't have any of these, 10, 15, 15 years ago. I was as clueless and crazy and reactive. But as I got this, it's like, okay, I get it. So if I could do this, I could gather spiritual tools, I could be responsible with how I use my energy, etc. And I can even get better at it too through this transit. I'm sure.
Mindful. I hear you being mindful. Yeah. Mindful, yeah.
Then that means anybody can. And I feel that this is the Saturn call. So that's my whole spiel for today for you. So Jessica, would you like to kind of say something to wrap this up in that sense, to wrap up our Saturn?
Yes. Yeah. I think that, the basis of our experience is to reach for good feelings, and have freedom and joy in our experience as much as possible. And that the neat thing about being a human is that there's the emotionality that we get to experience of all ranges. So whether it's like the story from earlier and the deep despair and horror association, that I was having, separating from my own really the way my source or my higher inner being might have been. The mole, right? It just becomes everything. And that's what the mind you know, where the monkey mind does
Yeah.
is it really exacerbates or like it amplifies those negative emotions. But like the law of attraction will also magnify and attract to you positive emotions. And I'm not saying we need to be positive, no, all the time, absolutely not. But reaching for that next positive thing that we can reach for, even if it's reaching from despair up to anger or something, where we start to feel like we have more power in it,
and more self-awareness, more agency. That's another word for Saturn, agency.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't have to come from a place outside.
No.
It's just all inside. And how we can also create, literally, like with Saturn, there's also, how can we bring heaven on earth? That's another one of the beautiful manifestations.
That's really beautiful.
How can we bring heaven and put it on earth?
That feels like, to me, the highest expression. That is
the highest
frequency I feel.
That is the highest
with the present transit, and that's what I'm most excited for, is to just watch and observe and savor the delicious unfolding.
Watch, observe, and savor.
The delicious unfolding.
The delicious unfolding. This is
poetry. Of like the rose-colored glasses, but like not from like
the rose colors.
Not just rose, but like rose colors that Saturn can wear.
Oh, okay. I'm imagining Saturn on his really pink outfit. Okay, so here's Saturn. Yeah. And Saturn's gonna wear these nice pink hearts and like little flowers.
It softens it up, doesn't it?
It's so soft. It's so feminine. It's so yin. It's
pretty beautiful, right? It
Saturn doesn't like. I mean, Saturn, the Saturn
touchy-feely necessarily.
The touchy-feely
softens them, even though Saturn is the feminine.
Yeah. So basically, if Saturn were to wear
a pink,
it would wear a pink fluffy thing, and this is just a pink Saturn.
I think that the inner being and the source is just going to shine through, and we're going to really be able to witness. Yeah.
And that is obviously the highest expression of that energy. And that's
the intention. I think as being a creator is like, we all get to
create. We all get to create.
Yeah. That's neat.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like this, because we get to create this reality and informed by our true connection to a divine source, and that's how we can bring heaven on earth, truly. And it requires that awareness, that self-awareness, and those choices that are aligned with coherence. So now that we have that piece, I'm going to just leave it with you, so you have something to ponder about.
Yeah, one more thing.
Yes, finger.
Just like when we talk about healing practices too, like it makes me I just have this deep appreciation in the moment for, emotions, or for the water element, and just having those rituals, but also the deep, amazing just appreciation of, our everything that's made from water, which our bodies are, of course, but, for healing, just appreciate that bath, appreciate that shower, appreciate that rain on your face, appreciate the lakes, and
slow down. That's also Saturn. Slow it down.
Drink that water and just, it's a beautiful,
be with it.
Thing.
Make your life a ritual.
It's a healing.
It's almost like make your life a ritual, but a ritual that it's not written in the books. It's your own little ritual of self-awareness and experience.
It's like refreshing and rejuvenating and healing.
And that makes me think, like, when you say that the natural sex style we were talking about, that natural Capricorn Pisces sextile of the energy of Saturn and Neptune, it's literally that both things can really coexist, because how could we bring a divine realm without an actual physical body? And how could we elevate ourselves if we didn't have anywhere to elevate to? So that's why it's this feedback loop, or this middle point in the center. It's a feedback loop. It's an infinity that goes back and down. And this is the motion that we will be experiencing with that Saturn moving through Pisces. It's like that. That's how we are designed to. This is our design. So the form, or the matter, is a part of the divine, and the matter can be dissolved, or energy can be always transformed, and it will come to matter again, and it's just that divine dance. So it's going to be this invitation to really be aware of that divine dance, and thereby we can dream, like that's the Neptune, Or if what we want is to live in a hellish construction and then evade a reality, then that is also a possibility of what we can create.
And I think that the discord of the contrast and the pain will be so amplified that our inner being speaking louder.
The discord of the contrast and the pain.
It will help. Yeah. I think it will become so uncomfortable the shift will
have to happen,
because in order to, we just need to surrender. Sometimes
either you escape and you die, or you just surrender. And and a lot of people that have had like really big spiritual experiences, that have gone through the depths of pain and despair, have had the biggest breakthroughs. That's also very possible with this transit. So the invitation is like, we don't have to go to the edge of despair in order to get it. The invitation is, can I already get it right now, even with the little things that are inviting me? So you'll notice that with Saturn or any transit, like there's always like the tests get, there's stages. There's like, and that's 3 years. Like the first stage is like, it's like the baby steps. It's like the decans almost. The first stage is like, well, you don't know much about this, so we're not going to just throw you at it. It's like, this is what's foreshadowed. This is how it could look like. And if you're immediately aware, you're like, okay, I'm going to work on this. The second stage, if you really are working with, it's like, okay, you're getting better at this. We can throw a little bit more at you. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can really deal with this. And the third stage is like, okay, final exam. We're going to throw like maybe something really big at you. You're going to handle it super well. And then you're like, okay, graduated from this stage. Check. You have new skills. You're awesome at compassion. You're awesome at self-mastery. You're awesome at bringing thought into matter. You're awesome. Okay, good, great. Now share it with others, because Saturn also becomes the one that through wisdom, because Saturn is also very wise, eventually through the time it has to spend with the lessons, then you can share it with others. So that's how I feel it happens. So throughout these 3 years, you're going to feel maybe this foreshadowings, these things, and how you're going to gather these skills. So that is, that's how it probably will roll out in our reality. And then we'll see what happens and what we align with. And guess what? Because we have free will,
we get to choose.
We could also not choose anything and just live it as an experience that then we'll catalog as, it was very uncomfortable in this area of my life, and this happened and that happened and it sucked, and that's the end, and that's it. And that's fine too. You just had an experience.
You're beautiful anyways.
You're beautiful anyways. The divine loves you. We have free will. And guess what? If you want to know more about how this could affect you in your birth chart, and you are not sure how this works, then you can always hit me up and look for my readings. I can have a reading for you, a transit reading. I can just, transit readings are great because they focus on that specific thing. So if you'd like that will be amazing. If you're interested in Jessica's intuitive readings also, you can also, I'll leave in the description below, I'll leave how you can reach Jessica for intuitive readings of energy. And she is an amazing, amazing psychic. So so I'll leave that also in the comments below if you feel called to do that and get some amazing advice and from this very wise woman that I have by my side that I love so much. So anyway, so I'll leave all that in the link in the description below once I can edit it. So in the meantime, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed this live, and you can share it also if this feels in alignment with you, to share it far and wide and help us spread this message. So Jessica, thank you so much for being here, for just jumping into this in such an impromptu manner and in such a vulnerable, and sharing your vulnerable experiences of your first house
with my wards and all.
With your wards and all.
You have the archetypal book.
Oh, the archetypal. Yeah, I do have.
Nice to hear the
you want
blend of the Saturn and
well, that's beautiful.
Neptune together. I think that would be really nice.
Let's conclude with.
I think it will be really interesting
with the Archetypal Universe, one of my favorite books, you all know, by Ren Butler, one of my mentors and dear friend. And who, by the way, if you haven't subscribed to Archetypal News Network, please also look at Archetypal News Network. I usually post also videos there, and other awesome astrologers post on that channel. So please feel free to check that out. So I'm going to read the Saturn-Neptune archetype for the ending of this, because Saturn-Neptune is kind of the analog to the Saturn entering Pisces. So let me give you some of those things. Saturn and Neptune. This is just a bonus before we close. This is a long show today, but Saturn, Neptune. So I'm going to give you the principles, the
Great.
character and themes, and then shadow qualities. Do I do the long version or the short version?
The short one.
Short version. A humble and grounded spirituality, quiet centeredness and integrity, feelings of divine discontent leading to a committed spiritual practice, practical service to others.
Oh, wow.
That's what we could expect to gain if we go through these lessons, and if you're already in that boat of having this awareness, this could be a beautiful transit, honestly, for you. Yeah, and you could be one of those teachers as well. Anyway, and now the shadow side.
Oh, great.
Feelings of uncertainty and doubt, disillusionment and lost innocence, anguished cravings for the lost womb, awareness of the poignant gulf between the human and the divine realms.
Oh, wow.
This is beautiful by Ren Butler. I recommend this book. Also, you can get this from, I imagine, many platforms.
I'd like to pick a card with you.
Jessica also reads beautiful
these are just
spreads and tarot. So again, if you ever want to hit up Jessica for readings and intuitive readings, best thing you can do. Okay, she's picking a card.
These are the Rumi cards.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Alana Fairchild.
Ooh.
This is the pocket version, so it's very sweet. I just want to pick 2 cards. I want you to pick them.
I'll pick them. Okay.
And,
a little message to leave us for this entering Saturn into Pisces.
Yeah.
1 and 2. Okay, we have these 2 cards. So, divine discontent.
Ooh.
What did I just read in the book? Thank you, the divine, for channeling this. Divine discontent. Winter falls upon us, so spring can bring new growth.
What was prized and treasured is now found to be plated, not the precious gold it was esteemed to be. Look beyond what is. There is a true feast meant for you, not a meagre meal. Allow your hungry-hearted soul to lead you toward the banquet table.
Well, this is exactly what it is, right? Divine discontent, beautiful by Rumi, and the Rumi cards. Divine.
Yeah,
it's
it's
upside
stunning.
down, so I'm sorry, you can't. But look at this image of wow. And the second card is Sacred Convergence. Oh, that is the okay. So we have 2 choices. Do you have the card? These are our 2 choices, right? Sacred Convergence. What cannot be found is what I am longing for. Although poor and needy, I will not accept small pieces of ruby.
You do not have to force the planets to spin, nor the great cycles of the soul to progress. All that is required is that you show up for what is offered to you now. Do your part. Take your steps. You cannot remain in a vibration of fear if you want to dwell in the frequency of love.
What would love do? Oh my gosh, this is a perfect summary of our little talk today. So if you're still like skeptical about how amazing the divine is, this is how it works. It will just always show you. So we have 2 paths, the path of love and compassion and the sacred convergence, or the path of divine discontent. You choose, and I love you. I'll see you very soon with another video. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everybody. And please feel free to leave comments. Thank you. Bye.